to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Every time I go to a conference or I listen to someone speak or I listen to a podcast, I hear an expert or a series of experts talk about all the things that everyone should be doing. And experts tend to talk in absolutes. It's very easily to kind of catastrophize your own business in your mind as you're listening, because none of us are doing all of these things perfectly. And it's kind of that comparison of where you are versus where they are. They didn't start here. This is where they are right now. And so I've always thought it would be nice to listen to designers and people running a successful businesses to talk about where they've fallen, and because we absolutely all have had those moments where we were thinking, what am I doing?
It sure would be nice to listen to designers and successful business owners talk about this, wouldn't it? Well, guess what? I know a few. Thank you so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business. Today is another episode of Overheard. You may have listened to our first episode last month when Anastasia Harrison, Tracy Connell, Eileen Hahn, and Jennifer Takatian were with me, and we discussed hiring exceptional people. We'll link it in the show notes. It was a really fun and insightful conversation about this topic. Today, thanks to Kate O'Hara's suggestion, we've got another great topic. Today, we're talking about what we wish we knew then, spilling the tea on the times that we've tripped up, and sharing the advice and business savvy gleaned from those hard times and lessons. It's a fun conversation, yes, but we aren't doing it simply to reassure our once fledgling selves. We're doing it for you so that you can learn from it. Because whether you're a beginning, rising, or seasoned designer, there are always mistakes made along the way. But way more importantly, there are lessons to be learned along the way. And I get that sometimes learning something the hard way is the best way to make it stick, right? It's painful and it hurts and you remember it. There's nothing like getting kicked in the butt to get us back on our feet again. But that doesn't mean it has to be the way. And it's not the only way, and it's not always the best way. We can learn from others' experiences as well, the good and the bad. And we can learn not just how to do things differently, but we can learn how to be resilient, which might be even more valuable. And I've got a great group with me today. Of course, Kate is here. Kate O'Hara is the CEO and creative director for O'Hara Interiors. The business was founded by her mom 35 years ago, and Kate has been with the company for the past 15. During this time, she has pioneered the firm's expansion to national markets and international clientele. And today, with studios in Austin, Texas, and Minneapolis, Minnesota, O'Hara Interiors is one of the most well-known interior design studios in the country. Kate is also the co-founder of Fay & Bell, an online collection of vintage and artisanal rugs from around the world, and a fantastic resource for you as an interior designer. This lady has design cred and business brains all day long, and I'm so glad that she suggested this topic to me. Erika Ward is also here, our Erika Ward transferable skills that I've talked about for 8 years. Based in Atlanta, Erika is the visionary behind Erika Ward Interiors. As the CEO and principal designer of this celebrated firm, Erika is responsible for its tremendous growth, as well as the never-ending list of satisfied clients it is leaving in its wake. Actually, scratch that. She isn't leaving her clients anywhere. Would you believe that 80% of her business is from repeat clients and referrals? That's some kind of testament right there to your process, to your system, to your client experience. She's been at it for 15 years, growing a beautiful family alongside an outstanding business. She is one hashtag smart lady. And yes, as I said, she is the Erika of the Erika Ward transferable skills that I'm always talking about. Okay. She was on the show with me when we were in single digits of episodes, and it makes me so happy to finally have her back again today. We also have Jennifer Stoner with us of Jennifer Stoner Interiors out of Richmond, Virginia, and Charleston, South Carolina. With a background in business and medical law, Jennifer transitioned to design 23 years ago, using those Erika Ward transferable skills from her former career to create exclusive VIP experiences for her luxury clientele. Jennifer is highly regarded in the industry, not just as a tastemaker and an award-winning designer, but also as an industry expert and speaker, educating fellow designers on creating signature business systems and client experiences. And finally, Alex Alonso is here. Recently, Alex was on Bravo TV's hit design competition series, Best Room Wins. But like the ladies joining us today, Alex has a great backstory too. He was born in Cuba, raised in Miami, and educated in Chicago. He stayed there for a while to work in advertising, then moved to LA and was in the entertainment industry for many years. Now back in Miami, where he has been the design principal of Mr. Alex Tate for the past 7 years. The studio is known for its global perspective, powerful storytelling, and bold sensibilities he calls modern Victorian. But beyond that, Alex is also known to have a calculated approach when it comes to business. I spoke with him on an earlier episode, we'll link it in the show notes, about a step-by-step process on how to know if a client is the right fit, which is really, really helpful to know before you sign them, isn't it? You've got to listen to the episode. So, we have a pretty successful lineup for you today, and I think you might be surprised to hear what it took each of these successful business owners to get to where they are today. Without further ado, let's get into this conversation. Hey, you guys, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today. I'm so psyched for this episode.
Hey, it's Erika Ward. I'm so excited to be back.
Hey, it's Alex Alonso. So excited, Luann. Good to see you again.
Hey, it's Jennifer Stoner, and so excited to be here with so many talented people.
Hi, it's Kate O'Hara, and I'm really glad that we're getting to do this after talking about it.
I know. So this actually is the brainchild of Kate O'Hara. I'm just going to tell you this topic. Yes, it is. You don't remember that? Yes. So here's the thing. We are going to dig in to, this is a brain trust. This is a brain trust of, individuals that I know personally and that I know, yes, create beautiful spaces, but also run very smart businesses. And, that's my kryptonite. Not, it's not kryptonite. Kryptonite's a bad thing. It's like my, we talk about guilty pleasures. That's my guilty pleasure, getting into the brains of people who do things, right, and create revenue and create a lifestyle for themselves and their employees and their families. And I know that that's true for each of you. And so that's what's exciting about this. And we're going to get into the look back on these hard-earned lessons that you guys have each accumulated in your careers. So thinking about that, I would like to kick it off with each of you sharing an anecdote, a memory, an incident, any way you want to take it, from early days in business that you either learned a significant lesson, you learned like, oh, that's a good thing, do more of that. I don't care how you take it, but something that, that we're going to think, oh, that's good to know. So, Erika, would you start us off with some sort of recollection of your running your business?
Yeah, so I transitioned from building construction, as you know, or some of your listeners may know already. But in my earlier days, my priority was really starting a family and growing a family. And so one of the things that I would say to anyone, or a great lesson that I learned, was to create a business model that would be flexible for growing a family and profitable. So the majority of my work at that time was more of a consultancy type service. So I would take on as many consultations as my schedule would allow for that day. And once those, 2 hours, 3 hours were up, that was the end of my day. I had my pay. I'm back in the car, headed to go get somebody from daycare or, running the soccer practice or whatever it was. But it was something that allowed me to be active in a business that I love. It allowed me to become an authority in my space. It allowed me to serve the clientele that I wanted, but it allowed me to also be present for my family at the end of the day.
I love that. I love that because it's funny. I don't know if you guys heard the episode with Jean Stouffer, but she talked about the different seasons of her
Yes.
business. And what we see with Erika Ward now is this luxury firm that's full service and all the things. And to think about that, you made a very conscious decision to do the consultancy model, which, if you would say it's pay to play, right? Like your time you're getting paid for. And when you're not there, you're not getting paid. But it really served you. How many kids? Erika, is 4, 5, 6? How
We
many
have
kids you
5.
have?
Yeah, we
5.
have 5 children and a dog. And the eldest are twins. They're 16. So they go from 16 to 9.
Yeah, and see, you're still knee deep in raising
Yeah, they're just a
humans. It's
piece
not even
behind
like
me.
they're past you yet. It's not
Right.
like the youngest is 16. Like you're still in it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's awesome. I love that very intentional way of setting it up to serve you and your family first. Love,
Most
love,
definitely.
love that. Yeah. Alex, how about you? Some memory or some anecdote from the beginning of business that sticks with you?
Sure. I think for me, one of the, and this is probably the simplest thing I can ever say, is the power of saying no, right? Early on, I felt that, at least for me, when I was starting this business, that every project needed to be a yes, right? The consultation needed to be a yes. The client needed to be a yes. And I think early on, I had just some not so great projects, that teach you so much about, well, introspectively, had I just taken a pause and really analyzed the situation and said, like, is this the right project for us and for them, right? Not just for you, but for them. Are they going to have a good experience out of this? Are you at the right stage to be able to take this project on and to give them what they need, right? I think if you have that moment to just pause and just evaluate and audit, if you will, it really kind of gives you that power to just say, you know what, I think we're going to have to pass on this. And these are the reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you make it more about you and your team rather than about them and the project, because they're going to get offended. They're going to say, oh, it's my budget or it's my style or it's my this. And you can say, like, actually, it's not, and these are the reasons why. I think it's you're coming from a place of strength. You know your business. You know what you can, what you can't do. And I think any good client, any good prospective client would respect that.
Yeah.
Right? To know when you shouldn't be dating. Like, this is a bad relationship. Like, you can see the breakup, 2 months down the road. Like, there's no reason to start dating.
Right.
So I think early on, I had just a couple of experiences where I think we rushed into it and we were so eager to take it on. We were just so excited. And it's not even to say that we were biting off more than we can chew. We just didn't know. Right. And we didn't know. We felt uncomfortable saying no. There were just so many things that we needed to go through in the process to really understand, just like, you know what, it's okay to say no. And quite frankly, many times you probably should say no.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if I don't remember, do you have a 4-step criteria when we talked on the podcast was it a 4-step criteria
4.
that they have to hit 3 of 4 for
Yeah.
you to say yes to the project now? And so we will put the link in the show notes. It's an outstanding episode to listen to because with this hindsight lesson, you have now taken it to a very actionable step of these are the 4 criteria. And to your point, the criteria support your team and your business as well as the client. So it does take it out of emotion and it puts it into a metric where you just look and say, not for me. But you guys all know that feeling in the beginning, saying yes to everybody, right? Like, is there any, forget design firm, is there any business that hasn't done that, right? Like, in the beginning, it's like you gotta pay the bills. You gotta make it happen. And so I think it's a common experience, but I love that you have taken it to an actual metric. And I will encourage all of you to go back and listen to the detail of that episode, because it is something you can adopt for your and adapt to what's important for your firm and your team, right? So very good, very good. How about you, Jennifer? What are we talking? 23 years in business here. What would you say is something that you'd like to call out from that experience?
I think mine is similar to Erica's background, and it's that coming from a different, completely unrelated field. I was an attorney. I was working in-house as legal counsel for Mayo Clinic at the time, and telling Mayo Clinic doctors that they had been sued for malpractice, which is not an easy thing. So when we talk about dealing with difficult clients, try telling a Mayo Clinic doctor they're being sued. So I think it was just kind of coming to the realization one day that I'm working my butt off and I'm paying somebody else to raise my children while I go deal with jerks for the most part all day. And I don't mean the Mayo Clinic doctors. They were
We
lovely,
won't send this
but
to the doctors
not
to
the
listen to.
doctors.
Don't worry.
But I mean, it's just, this is not a fun field. And
No.
there are things that I am definitely more passionate about. But for some reason, I got on this tunnel path into law from the time I was 6 years old. But all of the
Mm,
fun stuff that I liked was always related to design, and I just missed it. So I think it's
mm.
trying to figure out what's going to, juice your creativity, what is going to make you passionate about what you do, and what is going to fulfill your life that will help you raise your children with joy and not just have kids who watch mommy work her butt off and has never home because she's off at the firm or off at the office working crazy hours. Now they get to watch me.
Or just
Yeah,
miserable working, right?
yeah,
Like you might work
right.
long hours with design or whatever, but you're
But they
happy
see me
doing it.
loving
And
it.
that's a very key
Yeah,
difference, right?
they see my passion and they
Yeah.
see me loving it. So much
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
important.
I love that. I'm curious, did you have an opportunity to connect with Heather Hansen at Luann Live this past
I
November?
didn't. I wanted to, but yeah, I think
Oh,
she snuck off and she got sick at
you
the end or something happened at the end.
Yes, and she missed VIP
Yeah,
day, but you got to listen to her book on audio or buy the book Elegant Warrior.
yeah,
So Heather Hansen was a malpractice
yeah,
lawyer, and the whole book is like all running on how to teach your how to show up and advocate for yourself, because that's Heather's mission in life. But the book goes along her career as a trial
yeah.
lawyer, and it's really very interesting, but it's medical law, so I think you would probably enjoy it. Even I thought it was an excellent book. I loved it. And but anyway, so that's that. All right, so I love that. So it's like listening to
Mhm.
that little glimmer and not waiting too long and not just closing it out. It's like if there's some, and for anyone listening, you could be a designer and maybe the glimmer is telling you be a vacation rental designer,
Yeah,
maybe it's telling you be a sustainable, and you're just like, no, I got to keep doing this. It's like, go honor that voice and lean into your passion,
mhm.
is what I heard from that, right?
Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right, Kate, how about you, sweetie? What do you got on your mind that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I could really relate to what Alex mentioned. And I think that for anyone who's feeling like they have to say yes to anything, I will just say that one thing I came across, this isn't what I intended to share, but one thing that I did experience myself was there was a moment in time when I couldn't define who our best client was. I couldn't define who our niche client was. And it was because we were serving everyone. We wanted to serve everyone. Everyone was our best client. Our next client was our best client. And that's not good. That's not good. So if you find yourself in a position, I would say, of not being able to define if not your niche, at least your ideal client, then you might be in that pattern of the yes mode, and life gets a lot better and the job gets a lot more fun when you're able to identify your ideal clients and you're able to start saying I'm not a right fit to people who aren't going to
Right.
come close to that. Um, but related to that, what I was also going to say is that, and I do think these things are related, that when you're growing, it is so easy to want to give a lot away give your time away, to undercharge. But what I've seen as a business, and even with some of the designers on our team, when they're kind of growing, the growing pain that is most commonly hit by individual designers on our team, and I think that we had at one point, is a tendency to undercharge or overserve very early on in the process with a client. And in doing that, you have now set a baseline expectation that is, this is what you can expect from me. And I've just seen how damaging that can be to the relationship with your client. You really need to know what your services are and what they aren't, and wait until the second half of the process to go above and beyond when they can appreciate it. You can't go above and beyond from the start. That's just going to be what is identified as the baseline service. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make, especially when they're so eager to win the client over and develop that relationship. But it tends to lead to a soured relationship down the road, because if you're going above and beyond, what you're doing probably isn't sustainable.
Well, that reminds me of, like, in the Facebook groups a lot, you'll see this client expects so much. This client expects so much. I'm like, I'm over it. But to your point, if, like, when you're in the honeymoon period and you just started engaging and you're over, like 3 months later, they're not really expecting anything different than you didn't set them up to expect, is your point. And look, you guys all run luxury firms. So we know you're over delivering and you're delivering a client experience, but be conscious of stating what your deliverables are, stick to it. And when somebody goes out, there's a price tag attached to it, because you understand that they just, like, you know me with the restaurant analogies, the most amazing, beautiful, high-end restaurant. Yeah, they're giving you all of the things. But if you ask for another bottle of wine, they're not going to be like, you're so nice, and I'll just give it to you. It's like, no, 200 more bucks. Put it up, Vinny. You know what I mean? Like, the woman wants more wine, buy her more wine, right? Like, so I love that, getting clear and understanding when. And I will also tell you, anybody that's worked with me years and years, Window Works, everybody, like, my thing is it sounds crass to say it in a fine line sentence, but it expresses what you're saying is, when you're giving somebody something for free, they need to know about it. And what that means is, if in the beginning you're inclined to do an extra step for somebody, it's not that you can't do it, but you call it out as, this is not actually part of what we deliver, but that conversation yesterday, I'm gonna go out of the process here. I'm gonna go out of the box. I'm gonna give a little. You just have to tell them. So when they ask for it on Tuesday next week, you're like, no, it doesn't come every Tuesday, sweetie. Just that one when I was in the mood. You know what I'm saying? So I love it. Now, go ahead.
Well,
yes.
Can I just say, when I say go above and beyond, I do mean, and you kind of touched on this, I mean go above and beyond whatever your standard services are. So if you go to that restaurant, I would imagine that you expect the second time you go to have the same experience. And that's what we want for our clients as well. Whatever the same experience is, if you're doing more than that, that is the above and beyond. Your services may already be above and beyond what a lot of people do, but it's your standard. It's what you do.
Right. That's the point. As luxury firms, you are delivering an elevated experience that probably has lots of bells and whistles that maybe you didn't do in the beginning, and late as the years went by and you elevated, right? But it became the standard, is your point, Kate. And then what your standard is okay, as long as you know it. That's what I also think, that what I'm hearing is, know what your standard is and know when you're doing more. Okay. So here's the thing. I have like multiple questions here that I've got prepared. And I'm going to tell you, in reality, a lot of them are a version of the same question. It's really trying to pull out of you this, looking back at a successful career of what created it. So in my mind, by asking this similar things in different ways, I'm expecting it to yield different recollections for you. All right. So on that, and saying that, what's a piece of advice that you would give your younger self? And yeah, we kind of answered that, right? But this is the whole point of this show. I'm trying to get it all out of you, and this is just my way to keep nudging at your brain. So, piece of advice for a younger self. Do we want to switch up the order this time, and we'll go with Alex first?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I think, and it kind of tangentially ties into, kind of what I said before, but it's really about documenting everything. I mean, early on, you go to these meetings, you go to these consultations, you meet with clients, you're so excited, you're taking notes, some sense of notes. It looks like Sanskrit after you look at it later. And you can't make sense of it because you're just rushing to get through everything. You're a little bit nervous. You're trying to document, but you're not quite sure. You're not quite sure what you should be taking notes on, and what you should and what you shouldn't. And so I think for me, one thing that I've learned, and I tell this to everyone who starts in our studio from day one, is document everything. Write everything down, and then don't just hold on to it, but make sure you share it, or it's in a place where it can be accessed if you're not available. There's just something about making sure that for your sake, for the studio's sake, for your firm's sake, that you know exactly the details, whether it's measurements or conversations, approvals, and things like that from that one-on-one conversation with the client, but then that someone can access it when you're not around, when you're not available, or to just go back to and reference it, says, it's been a few months. I know we picked that rug color. I can't even quite remember anymore. It's been 3 months. Who remembers any? I don't remember what I ate yesterday. So
right.
It's about really documenting it. And I think you get better with time in terms of what you document, what you don't document, right? I remember I was so nervous for my first meeting that I thought, okay, what am I going to say when I first meet this person? What am I going to go to? And I kind of walked myself through this, this meeting, if you will. And I kind of crafted questions out of that early on. And I found out that I probably had like 4 pages of questions, and it was only 30 minutes. So you're not going to get through all of it. But at least you had a structure and you were somewhat prepared, and you can guide the conversation. And the client many times will say, well, you get to the house and they're just like, what do you want to do? And, and I've learned that for me, what works best is, why don't you walk me through your house? And I focus my time, rather than asking a lot of questions early on, to listening. Mm-hmm. So the first part of the meeting is about listening. You want to be keen about how they are actually describing spaces, what they like, what they don't like, and what they're not describing, even though you're probably seeing it. Like, oh my God, there should be a window there. What the heck are you talking about? You're talking about, wallpaper. Like, this is awful. Like, you can't even, whatever. So but you listen, right? And so I think that becomes part of the documentation, right? So early on, I kind of had this whole sense of, out of sheer freakiness, right, of it all, just like, what am I even doing when I get there? And then what am I writing down? Like, is this person going to, and sometimes people are just like, they're very cool, and you see them on TV and they just go through the concept, sure. And they're just walking around, taking it all in, like, right. And then 2 weeks later, you're just like, what the hell just happened? I don't have any notes of what I just went through. We have no conversation, So I think over time, I've gotten a lot better about creating a process for documenting during first consultations and things like that, but also internally setting up systems whereby we document and we share. So I would tell myself from the very first day you start a job in interior design is learn to document.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, and I'm going to tell you what, if I were just sitting here and having had interviewed 1,000 designers in 8 years, I might be like, that's a good tip. I hope people do it. But here's what I'm telling you, folks. I sold window treatments to interior designers for 40 straight years. There was one designer in 40 years that walked around with a pad and paper while we were on the job in 40 years. Literally in 40 years. Like, I'm sorry. I watched it over and over. And what I really loved was 4 months later when they told me that was or wasn't what we decided. Oh, that's awesome. That's priceless right there. That is really priceless. You want to make me crazy? That's how you make me crazy. Tell me what was decided 6 months later when only one of us was taking notes. Now, see, I could go nuts right now. Okay. But I think it's changed because a lot of the designers that we work with have listened to me complain about this on the show. And so now when we show up, pretty much almost all of them have pen and paper, or iPads. I don't care how you do it.
Right. Exactly.
So my point is, do not underestimate this suggestion that he would give his younger self, because it is not instinctual, as odd and as weird and the contrary as it seems.
Well, and one other thing that I'll add is that I think I felt self-conscious, about writing things down. Like I felt like the client would be just like, what do you mean? Aren't you a pro? Don't you know this? You should take it. Like, it just felt like it should be like feeding into me through osmosis. Like I was very self-conscious about it. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to stop the conversation to write stuff down. I'm like, yeah, no, actually I am.
Sir. Yes,
I actually am.
Well, but again, to the restaurant analogy, isn't the higher you go in restaurant service, the less likely they're writing things down? And like you ask Vinny, I don't think in my entire life I've ever, maybe at McDonald's, if I've been there twice in my life, that I've ordered off the menu the way it is. I am that wackadoodle. Oh, can I have the chicken this way, but change it to that and add that? Yeah. And not for nothing, until that dinner shows up, the whole time I'm like, yeah, they're not going to make that right. They're going to mess that up. So I appreciate when a professional I'm working with is writing the things down. So, good for you. I love that tip. All right, Jennifer, how about you? What would you tell your younger interior design business owner?
Well, I do have to say hallelujah to that, because as the former attorney, I would be constantly harping on everybody around me, document, 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 document. So bless you.
Right.
And
that's how you win court cases or lose them, if you don't have the documents, right?
So to that end, I will also share that we used to be the pen and paper kind of people, but we're all a little crazy as designers. We're all a little ADHD. I would have 5 different notebooks sitting on my desk, and I would grab whichever one was the closest to me. I'd open up to some random page and I'd make my notes. And then my assistant would be doing the same thing on some random notebook she'd have. And then we'd, 2 weeks later be going, well, where are those notes? I thought you had them. So thankfully, we have now progressed to using Trello. And so we open it on our phone. We take our notes directly into Trello. Everybody on the team sees it. So thank God for some technological advances in that arena.
Yes.
But yes, hopefully we've all progressed from pen and paper at this point.
Well, and you know what? And there might be people like of my generation. They're like, I cannot talk to Alex's point and pay attention and do Trello. But I have a Remarkable.
Yes, my husband
and
has
I love
that.
the Remarkable.
Yeah.
Because I just go to podcast interviews, or I go to marketing meetings, or I go to WindowWorks team meetings. It's because I am also the person who used to have 16,000 notebooks, and then I would be at a meeting without that notebook. And so now I have my Remarkable, and my crazy flighty brain can just put it all. I just have to carry one thing around, but all the things are there. So I love that. All right. Good for you. How about you, Kate? What's something you would tell your younger business owner self?
So many things. I think that I probably have a slightly different perspective, because I stepped into a business that was already pretty established. It was already 10 employees, and now we're around 30. So my early self wasn't a just getting started and just founding a company. I was figuring out how to take an established company and scale it to grow to multiple locations. And so all of that is to say, with that in mind, I think that some of the things I've realized along the way have involved a lot that your processes and your client experiences or client experience probably aren't as buttoned up as you think they are. That was something we realized when we opened a second office. We thought we were on top of it. But when you open a second office, your attention's divided. And how well will that other office run when you don't have 100% of your attention on it, if you're expecting it to run fairly independently? And the answer was not super well at first. Not great. But we were, we were paying attention. So we were able to go back. We were able to identify where our clients were having inconsistent experiences, where our processes weren't the same. And I think that led us also, or led me at least, to the realization that in order to scale, absolutely no one within the company, including myself, can be irreplaceable. If you want a business to scale, neither you nor anyone else can be irreplaceable. And if someone is, that's something to attend to. and to spend a
I
little
love
time
that.
on.
It's funny because just before you said if you have the thing to scale, in my notes, I wrote, this is a cautionary tale about scaling. This is exactly what I wrote before you said that because, a lot of us think about, oh, we're going to open up another office. And maybe we don't want 30 employees. We want 3 here and 3 there. But the idea is if the initial place isn't on lockdown, you're right. You step out for 10 days or 1 hour or 1 minute. And, in the beginning with WindowWorks, we opened one uh, location. Within 6 months, we opened up a second location. And within another year, we opened a third location. But let's not forget, we had the Vincenz running things. He is a lunatic about system and process. And, it felt more or less easy, but it still has its challenges. And you're so right, Kate. The challenges come in that documentation and the duplication of who and what every person is doing. And we just had it in a meeting at WindowWorks a couple of weeks ago, and we're just like, literally no one is indispensable. And if they are, we've got a problem, right? Like that's exactly, I love it. It's exactly what we're learning too. So good for you. And Erika, how about you? What would you tell your younger business self?
So, the advice I wish I could give my younger self is that you will arrive, but it may be via a different mode of transportation. So think
Hmm.
about if we're taking a trip somewhere. I'm in Atlanta, so say I'm going to New York. Somebody might be on the plane, somebody might be driving. Somebody may have driven to Charleston and got on the ship and then took a, boat up the East Coast to New York. I mean, you're going to get there, but every person's transportation mode or their method of getting there may be different, and that's okay. And I think keeping that in mind prevents you from trying to model someone else's process and really staying true and authentic to, again, making this business part of your lifestyle. Because when you're trying to mimic something else that you see someone else do, because clearly my lifestyle is not like most people's lifestyle. And so I would be a train wreck and would take my family along with it if I was trying to mimic someone else who had a lot more personal free time than I do. And
Mm.
so that's it, plain and simple. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Hmm.
It's so true. Remember when Amber Lewis was on the show years ago and she said that quote, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
the same. You're not talking about beginnings and middles, but it's just do you. Like, do you. Like, you don't know really what's happening in that Instagram life that you think you're watching in that other design firm. But
Mm-hmm.
I love the sense that you just sit in your first priority is your family and the business supports that, but your
Mm-hmm.
mom first, right? Your
Yeah.
mom, wife
Yep.
first. And I follow you on Instagram. Your faith is very important to you. Those
Mm-hmm.
are your cornerstones. And I think from that, you very successfully, have the business feed and support those things instead of you allowing yourself to chase things that quote unquote maybe Erika Ward should or shouldn't be doing
Mm-hmm.
based on what the world thinks of who we think you are, right?
Sure.
Because I mean,
Yeah.
you've been a name in the industry for many years. I mean, I found you out of, plucking you out doing research
Yeah.
8 years ago,
Right.
right? Like you
Yeah.
were coming up in searches 8 years
Mm-hmm.
ago as
Mm-hmm.
best interior designer, blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
amazing to think that how you've crafted that and stayed true to what supports you as a person.
But I think it's also interesting, and again, I can come from the perspective as a parent or just anybody that needs your attention. If you can stop for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and whatever, and give that person, my dog, my child, my husband, my grandmother, that attention. They feel like they've got what they need from you, and then they're
Mm,
going off to do whatever else they want to do. And they're not even thinking another thought about you because they got whatever time and attention that they
mm,
needed for you. So then also you can go do that thing that you need to do without any guilt, thinking that, oh, they needed me and I wasn't there. You follow what I
mm.
mean?
Yes, it's like taking the intentional 15 minutes to be present, and
Mm-hmm.
then they've got, like, I love that analogy. They've got it. Like, okay, mom, go work, don't whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, they
I
they would
had
have
a little
left me.
problem, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I had a little problem, but you sat and you paid attention to me and we solved it, or at least I felt heard, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not hanging on after dinner, after this, tomorrow. I love it. I love it a lot. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. I'm going to share with everybody that I have about, I don't know, what do I have, 20 questions left, and we're 40 minutes into this. So clearly, what I want to do though is I don't want to skip the question about a tough moment, adversity. Because look, we've all had come to Jesus moments. I am going to preface this for each of you in case any of you process quote unquote failures the way I do. I have a very difficult time when somebody says to me, tell me about a failure. I get it asked when I'm on other podcasts. I get it asked when I'm at live events. And I'm going to be completely frank with you. It's not because I have a difficult time sharing what I've been through. I have a really difficult time processing anything as a failure because I go right to, well, that was really hard and that really stunk and that happened to it. But oh my God, I never would have this or I never would have that if that didn't happen. So for me, and in case any of you are like me in this regard, when I hear this question, I have to just separate. I want to hear your lesson from it, but I have to separate the goodness that I got from it because I'm such a silver lining and there's a lesson in everything, and just take myself emotionally to the hard thing and the hard lesson, the hard part of that lesson. So, with that little pep talk, what is something that you would just say, yeah, that was a tough thing. I did it. I'm happy to know if you've come through it and what you did, but let's save somebody else that possibly. So, Kate,
I'd
you want
love
to
to
start us
share.
off?
Oh,
Oh, you want to start, Erika? Go right
yeah,
ahead,
just to
please.
get it over with because it stinks. So and I did it more than once. So it was just like, ouch. So okay, I didn't recognize when I went from being, a like you call it a baby designer, right, to being a luxury designer. And when I recognized that I had arrived, it was because I made a terrible mistake of spending my clients' money like it was my money. And what that
Ah,
means is I'm more conservative on some things, and where that client I'm serving may not be, and it's all relative what you think is conservative and what you think is extravagant, right? And so I may have held back on some things and not shown the client it could be this, or it could be that, and give them the first right of refusal. I did that twice. And the first time it happened, I mean, she really tore into me about, do you not think I can afford this? And it was nothing like that at all. It was just, again, I mean, shucks, I couldn't afford it. So maybe I was thinking about it as if I was spending it out of my pocket, but never ever do that. Our clients hire us to give them all of our greatest ideas and then let them say, hey, I think that's a little bit too far from where I'm trying to go. But go ahead and at least show them and give them the first right of refusal. So that was my failure, well, one of the many failures that I've had. But that
mm,
was one that I learned from. And it also helped my bottom line, in my business
mm.
too, because I was showing them everything, that not everything, of course, it was juried to what would work in their home, but not be limited to just what I thought in my mind was
You're the
a lot of
story in your
money.
head.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, and you guys have heard me from the very beginning. Don't save your clients' money. Like as and I understand, like from the standpoint of the experience of that particular client, she was offended because she thought you decided she couldn't afford it.
Right.
That's not the offense I take. When I've been in that situation, and I not necessarily with interior design, but with other things that I'm going actively and getting information or quotes or estimates or exploring, what I process it is, if I wanted to just know what was available to the rest of the world, I wouldn't have hired you as a professional. Like, I
Right.
want to know what I don't know. So please don't decide for me, because you're not going to be able to tell by looking at me if I can afford it. I can tell you that right now, because the girl doesn't go out and do the things. You know what I'm saying? But it's like the weirdest things that Vin and I will be like, yep, pluck it down on that. And others we're like, you're kidding me. That's insanity. Right. But the point is the respect to the client, that you're the professional. You have the amazing idea for the $40,000 chandelier. That is insane to spend $40,000 on the chandelier, but that is their choice to decide. And if your wonderful, talented, beautiful brain could conceive of it, could find it, could curate it, could show it, then you owe it to both of you and them, to show it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. I love it, Erika. Good for you. Thank you. Okay. So who wants to go next with the hard lesson, the big lesson? Jennifer, go ahead.
We had a really bad lesson, or a really hard lesson early in my career. It's probably, if I look back, it was probably around 2005, 2006. I had one retail store which was going gangbusters. It was a great little store, at 4,000 square feet, great team, great staff. I'm like, yeah, why not open?
Not so little, by the
Yeah.
way, 4,000 square feet.
Well, let's go ahead and open a second store. Let's open an 8,000 square foot store, and let's double our staff, and let's, because what could go wrong? Jumped right into it.
Just more good stuff,
Yeah,
right?
obviously I got this. I'm good at this, right? So, oh yeah, jumped into that, and after about a year, had to pull out of that store, had to sell our house in order to pay down the landlord, had to move my family out of the custom home I built. So, really tough stuff. And all of that, was a true challenge to my marriage. And Jeff and I got through all that and survived. We just passed our 30th anniversary, but it also teaches you that, challenges and mistakes are okay in life, because I can look back now and learn lessons from it, and grow from that, and not jump into things so quickly, and do a little bit more homework now. And there's just things, what is meant to be is meant to be, and that was always meant to be part of my journey. So I can't hide my head in the sand about it. I just have to take my lumps and move on. So
that's an incredible lesson. All the years I know you, I've never had the opportunity to hear that story. And I think every one of us sitting here, when you think about, like, you have to sell your house, when you mention, the challenge to your marriage, like, that's some really deep repercussions right there.
We all hide it. We all, hide behind the pretty Instagram pictures.
Show up at the panels,
but we all have those stories. And I think that we just need to be kinder to ourselves and say, you know what, this is a life lesson that I will learn, and it's not something I should hide from, because other people out there have those similar journeys too, and it's not always pretty. But, in the end, I grew.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. It reminds me, when you think, I don't know if you guys here in this room know Michelle Williams, who she was one of the co-authors in one of my Power Talk Friday books. She has her own podcast, Profit is a Choice. She is one of the most respected mentors, coaches in our space for teaching you your financials. I've never referred a designer to her that came back to me and said, yeah, not worth it. Not one. Everyone, like, going from I know nothing to I own my numbers, or I'm pretty good, but like I want to get to like this. And you know what? What's crazy is her story, origin story, is she had a business, and like the first year or the second year in the business, she had a $70,000 tax bill that she couldn't pay because she didn't know to account for it. Like, and I'm not talking out of turn. The woman shares the story, right? Like, it's like, but your brain, you see Michelle, who she is now, and you're just like, oh, you always knew how to do this, didn't you? And she's like, no, ma'am, this came from the hard lesson, right? So, I mean, me, if I showed up without my tax money, I could understand. Like, I'd be like, okay, whatever. But you would think that Michelle always had this. So that's an incredible story, Jennifer, and thank you for sharing it. It is. It's a lesson to dot your I's and cross your T's, and to make sure that you do the projection analysis of what this is really going to cost, and what are the different best and worst case scenarios if we don't make it, because we still want to take risk.
Yeah.
Right. But we just don't want to risk the house on it. Right. Like, it's sort of like, can we handle the risk if it happens? Right. So good for you. How about you, Kate?
I think that for us, one thing that comes to mind with our company was we grew. We had a lot of success and grew really rapidly. And it was fun and easy to keep saying yes to projects and to have that we just say yes mindset because the phone kept ringing. And that was probably when we should have been more discerning rather than over and over again saying yes, 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 because it led to a growth of our company, which is then a growth in overhead. And now, well, not now, but after that period of time, you have to keep up with that now. And so do you have to keep saying yes? Do you downsize, or do you navigate your way to adjusting course toward your ideal clients? So we grew a little too fast because we were just having so much fun with the success we were having, but it led to issues because we weren't always working with our ideal clients. And I think every designer knows what that feels like. And now imagine you have, 6 designers leading projects and everyone's doing that. And the problems scale just like the revenue does. And so we really had to sit down and figure out um, how to be okay with not growing for a little while so that we could start saying no to some projects and start saying yes just to the ones that we really wanted. And that took a real mindset shift, and it felt at the time like a failure. I would say that it, like you, Luann, I'm like, this is great now. Like it was a wonderful thing that happened to us. But at the time it felt like a real failure.
And it's funny because it's possible that if you haven't scaled your business up past 3 to 4 or 5 million, maybe this is tougher to visualize this lesson. And it probably is the same at going from 1 to 3 people and going from 200,000 to a million. But I feel it intrinsically knowing, having scaled Window Works. It's that moment where what I'm hearing is, there's a part of you that's running the business. It's well run. It's happening. It's and so then let's have another truck, and let's have like a second team and a third and a fourth team of installers. And then all of a sudden you're looking around, you're like, oh, we need to sell stuff to everybody because we've got 4 sets of installers here and 3 of them are not working for the next 2 weeks. Right? And that does sort of feel like what I'm hearing is the clarity on, we want to scale, we want to grow, we want to earn more profits, we want to share more things with our employees, but what is the sweet spot of still being who and what we've carved out in the marketplace and managing it? And it's like the gas pedal and the brake. A little here, a little there, a little here. And a lot of times we're all about the gas pedal, right? Right? And like, go, 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 go. But it's like, oh, now that because then there's going to be that lull. And it's like, well, there's no gas in the tank now. Right. So it's interesting. It's an interesting growth lesson. And it is hard because also you're at a stage where it's hard to pivot easily. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that revenue is a really fun scoreboard. Like revenue is the most fun as a scoreboard for those of us who are competitive, which is every entrepreneur. And yet, when you are taking on clients that maybe or maybe you learn are not going to be that good fit, they're probably the clients that are going to impact your bottom line the most, and or your own just ability to serve your ideal clients or be available to them,
or your happiness factor, right?
And so, exactly. So it comes at all these different costs, and the larger you let your business grow into that, the more challenging it can be, I think, to steer a change. The ship keeps getting bigger. It's a little less nimble now
That's what
turn
we say
and
all the
shift.
time. It's like the ship is so big. We have to be consistently looking 3 and 6 and 8 and 12 months out because you just don't make a decision and make a shift with a big ship. You know what I mean? Like my business here at Luann Niagara Inc., your head would spin. Like this is a perfect example. Kate and I were having a Voxer conversation one day. It went on for like 2 days straight. We're just like kept checking in on, I'm in the car again. Let me tell you more of this. And she's like, Luann, that's something I'd really, really love to hear on the podcast. Like those mistakes from the, and the things that you wish. And I literally Voxer Diane, like, we're doing this, blah, 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 like, called Erika, called Jennifer, Alex. It's like, and if it weren't for the holiday in between the idea, we would have recorded it probably 3 days later. I'm like, this is it. You know what I mean? So little ships, little, your big ideas, little ideas, you lean in, but big ships, it's harder. And a lot of times I think what I'm hearing you say is, there's decisions that are made and they feel like great decisions. And then by the time you ramp them up and you're doing them and it's rolling, it's like, oh, wait, what is this? What is the impact of this decision? And now we got to like pick it all apart again and keep the good parts and try and let it go to the side, the bad parts, right?
I think we're going to see this kind of impact a lot in our peers right now, because of course everybody's ship grew much larger with COVID because we all got so crazy.
Yes.
We all grew our teams, we all grew our businesses. And now as things start to kind of contract back to normal, we're going to see a lot of people who can't steer that ship.
It's
not just the designers, but the vendors too. I mean, we're seeing it with manufacturers.
Everybody. Yeah. It's crazy. It's a very interesting time in the market, the economy, in business right now as we're talking January 2024. It's we meet with Exciting Windows members every single Thursday. Like every Thursday, we're literally seeing what's happening on the two coasts. It's not hitting the middle America yet. Like it's just insane. So it's going to be challenging, but if you're seeking information from experienced people like you, you have a better shot of navigating it. So, Alex, what is your hard-earned lesson or failure that you'd like to share?
Geez. I don't think I've even gotten past it. I think it still happens, right? To some extent, but it's assumptions, right? I think early on, you go to have a meeting, you have clients, you have to start the project. You're good. It's just you. You're a one-man show, at least for some of us, right? It's a one-man show. You've got it all. It's up here. And then as you start to grow, you take people along with you, right? You'll take your junior designer, your assistant, whoever it is that's coming with you, and you assume that they are as vested in it as you are, that they're taking it all in, that they can keep up with you, or whatever the case may be. And as you start to go weeks into the progress of the project, you're realizing that all those details aren't there. Perhaps they're assuming that you're going to be doing certain. So I think this whole notion of assumptions, right? Has been an area for us that sometimes we just assume someone else is either doing it. And I'll say this in particular, we recently had a couple of folks leave the studio for different reasons, right? One was performance, another one was just kind of lifestyle change, whatever the case may be. And so we had assumed, because we had entrusted them that they'd been with us for a few years, that they were actually doing the job at hand. They were writing the course. They were, they have their duties. They have, we do our check-ins, but your contact on it, your point on it. You've been with us now for several years. You know what you're doing.
We're trusting you to get it done.
Exactly. And then when
like a grown-up over there.
Right. And then when they're out, they're just like, so none of this was done at all. And so it's not just the person that was with us, but it's also the trickle down, right? The people who they should have been on the vendor side, who should have been doing certain things, or the contractors. So I think just assumptions and listen, I'm very much a hummingbird with a machine gun sometimes. I'm just like, I come in and people are just like, okay, you need to stop for a minute. But you've got like 12 projects, 15 projects, everything's going on at once in your head. And you've entrusted people, you're assuming people are doing what they should be doing. You have your weekly statuses, you have all this sort of stuff, and it just doesn't happen. So I think for us, a source of kind of reflection of things that have kind of been a failure for us is really that continuity of finding the intersect where we can not just hold people accountable, but checking in and making sure that we're not just leaving it up to assumptions that something's going to get done, but the follow through on it. Right. And it happens a lot with our vendors, right? You send the vendor an email, you ask them for something, you assume they're going to respond back. It's been 2 weeks, you still don't know. You think these people who make money would want to keep making money. They don't. I don't know. So
Because they have humans on their team that are not being accountable and following through either.
right. So I mean, and everyone's situation is different, of course, right? And so you kind of factor that in, but at the same time, it's like this is a business, So, and again, the client has assumptions; they have expectations of how all of this is going to play out. So we're kind of caught in the middle here of trying to keep everyone, honest, if you will. So I think assumptions and just not leaving it up to assumptions has been an area where I'll say we've chronically failed. And I think we get better at it, right? Through documentation, through check-in meetings, through status, whatever you want to call them, internally and with clients and even with vendors. But it's just a sore spot, I think, for us internally, just as a running course of business, right? I think it's just one of those things that you kind of, I don't think we ever will get 100% perfect at it. But there's only so much you can do, but you can try to do as much as you can. And I think the best that we've been able to come up with is really making sure that we're doing those daily, weekly check-ins internally with clients, with ourselves, all that good stuff. So I think that for us has been something that we kind of struggle with. And we try to get better as we keep growing, right? Because the more people you bring in, as Kate was just saying, the more you grow. Now you're 5 people, now you're 6 people, now you're 10 people. You're all assuming everyone is an adult and doing what they should be doing. And sometimes they're just not.
Yeah.
So
I don't think, I mean, I'm going to just take a stab in the dark. Have any of you ever had an experience when an employee left for good or bad reasons that you didn't find, holy cannoli, what's underneath that cushion there? Like really, in 40 plus years in business, it's just like, it's crazy. And so I think your frame of mind on it, Alex, needs to be, said out loud. It's, if you are assuming and that's all you're doing, you are going to have a problem. If you are thinking like you are, you're still going to have problems. Right? Like we're still going to have that, but there's a difference between the business owner that's literally running through and not doing the different things and really making assumptions on all parts. And those of us that have had the experience of the detriment to those assumptions, we know it. But to your point, we're not going to reach perfection on this. We're just not. It's the going for it that will eliminate the largest percentage of it happening. But humans are very creative on covering their booties and covering their trails and, making sure everyone thinks and looks like it's done. Like, I don't want to be cynical, but like, it's a lot of employees in my lifetime. I'm just going to tell you.
Well, and I'll say this. We had a meeting with an employee a few months ago, and I started asking questions, and he's just, and the response was just like, oh, well, I assumed. I assumed the client wasn't going to be okay with it. I'm like, wait, you recommended a $15,000 chandelier for a project whose budget is only $100? Are you crazy? Like, you just assumed that he was going to go, well, he has really good taste, I assume. I'm like, no. You've now just wasted so many weeks worth of resourcing, sourcing this product. It was a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
So again, assumptions based on what, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was just one of those things where it came to a head, and we had the meeting with the client. The client looked at us like, "What are you crazy? What are you recommending?
How are we
here?"
going to do the rest of the job?
Right. So yeah.
And I just want to clarify too. The employee isn't always. That's a nuance. That's a little like, to be harsh. That's negligence. That's not bad intent, right? So like I'm was being cynical a moment ago, but a lot of times it's, to your point, just assuming that the employee or our colleagues have clarity on the objective. It doesn't have to be coming from a place of malice or trying to get away with something. Your example reminds me of, I one time had a chairman of the board client, and she runs a commercial firm. And, the margins on commercial firms are just, like literally like commercial, you know what I mean? Like not boutique, hotels, right? Like the margins are so like we spent 3 months of the first 3 months of our coaching program of me going, you have to charge more. She's like, Lou, I can't charge more. This is the margins in this industry. I'm like, well, I know that's not really enough to run a business on. I'm just saying, right? Like so, but the thing was, she one time came to a meeting, and if she hears it, she's going to remember it exactly. She had a newer employee that she really thought she had given good instruction and came to a project that had like a total budget of like $50,000 for whatever the amenity space that they were doing. And they sourced the outdoor furniture at $32,000. And she's just like, okay, so what is the flooring on that inside lobby and what is the lighting on that lot? Like $32,000 on the outdoor furniture, like at a commercial price. Like no, like this is insanity, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, Kate, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, well, this is just, it's making me think of an assumption or reminding me of an assumption that I think we made once upon a time, which was that we tended to assume that if someone was good at their job, they would be good at managing and mentoring someone in that job. And that turns out to be completely uncorrelated. I'm going to say 100% uncorrelated.
Good at walking, they're also going to be able to do a marathon. Like, no.
Yeah. No, it really does not factor. And at this point in the company, we have design teams of one, we have design teams of multiple, and a lot of that is determined by the lead designer's personal choice about whether or not they want to manage, because it's something we talk about now, because you have to train this person. You're not getting someone who's coming in and can just hit the ground running with you. Even an experienced designer is going to have to learn your processes, procedures, expectations, and someone joining might not be all that experienced. So that was definitely a bit of a aha for us when people who were incredible designers, award-winning, published, wonderful at sales and closing the sale and all of those aspects of design, including the parts we don't always talk about, and then they would have someone working for them and it would just be an absolute disaster. And that took a minute for us to digest.
What I love about that, I didn't know that about your firm, Kate. I love that there's room that you, as a thinking CEO and leader, leave room for. This is a rock star, and this rock star is also a lone wolf, and he or she will get it done. And I just have to filter the projects to this person that one person could reasonably expect it to get done, but leave that person in their lane. Don't bring the whole project down by having somebody that doesn't play in the sandbox with other people, because it is a skill set. And then somebody else who has that ability to lead a design project and lead a couple of humans in the process. So how interesting that you don't make the people fit a box. Like, I love that. That's a very out of the box thought there, Miss O'Hara. I like that. Very good. All right, guys. So here's the thing. It's an hour and 7 minutes. I would love, I could do this for days with you guys. But I think I'm going to have to revise my, outlook on this new series called Overheard, which is, getting together this brain trust of people on different topics. Let's each of you close with a final thought, something that you want to share, business, personal, from your heart, advice to your colleagues. Don't make it bigger than it needs to be. Just a closing thought that you want to leave out in the world. That's not too much pressure, is it? Anything? So who wants to go first? Raise your hand. Tell me who. Oh, Erika. Erika's a go-getter. She likes to go first and get this stuff done.
I'm just trying to help people. You know what I mean? To just save someone some tears, because I've had many. But what I want to say is really work on, and I think this is valid for anyone, whether it's a 1-person show or 30-person show, is always develop your own personal leadership skills. Okay. Because we can talk about, what Alex had made mention of, but I always look at, okay, what did I do wrong? You know what I mean? And I try to figure out where I could have been more accountable, more present, or more clear with my instruction and do more checks, more balances. And it's not being a micromanager, it's making sure they have clarity. And I know there's some different opinions about, if someone feels like they have a question, they should be able to come in and ask you. Well, that's not everybody's thought process, if you will. But it is mine to come and ask you, hey, where are we with this? Let's take a look at it on Wednesday, or I'll be back on Tuesday. So they have the expectation of what done looks like to you, because that was the issue in my office. Like, what is done, right? This is done. When I ask, is it done? Does it look like this? That's done. And so, but it took me to show and to demonstrate what that looks like from my standpoint, because I'm the one that has a specific expectation and my name's on the building. So it's like, if it's not done as I promised, they're looking for Erika Ward, not for whomever it was that worked on that particular task.
I love it. I love it. What does done look like? It's teaching them,
but being a leader, figuring
Yep.
out how I can best lead my staff so that they can manage my expectation and know how to deliver, not just for whatever it is that I ask, but for our clients as well.
Very good. Very insightful. I love it. I love it. Who would like to go next? Okay, Alex.
I'd say probably the second thing I would tell someone after they start with us, apart from write everything down, is just be curious. And I always tell that, and even during the interview process, I ask people just like, are you curious? And I think curiosity leads us in a lot of interesting down a lot of interesting paths, I think, in this industry. Because you do have to be curious. You have to be curious about not just the design, but the execution. And I think the more curious you are, the more you ask questions, and the more you listen, I think you become a stronger designer. I think you become a better leader, and many times a better follower, right? I mean, I think good leaders are only a reflection many times of how well they've followed, because they've learned what is a good leader, what is a bad leader, right? And so you can't lead if you haven't followed. So I always I'd like to leave people with the idea that curiosity never goes out of style. It's always welcome. And whoever's not curious, just don't even knock on our door. I don't really
You're not welcome.
You're really just not welcome here. So
that's awesome. That's also good advice. Thank you for that, Alex. How about Jennifer? How about you?
Mine actually ties into Alex's a little bit, because I think one of the most important attributes that a designer needs is confidence. And that confidence comes from that curiosity and its knowledge. So, one of the things that I feel can set you apart from other designers, or, anybody else in the room, is having a little knowledge to back up what you're trying to sell. So, from that standpoint, I go to KBIS every year. I go talk to vendors. I know how the appliances work. I can walk in on a job site. I can talk about windows. I can talk about, the nitty gritty details, and get into things, and just have builders looking at me like, damn, this girl actually knows her stuff. So it's get the learning and the education behind you consistently, so that you always are the smartest one on the job site, hopefully. um it's just build that confidence and go to as many seminars, workshops, trade shows, wherever you can get it from. Podcasts, I certainly have learned a lot from you over the years, Luann, and various podcasts out there. But just always be hungry for knowledge, and ways to back up your own talent and your own you know confidence when you go into a room.
I love that. I love that. I know that when I was working closely with Monogram for a couple of years there, and still great partners with Monogram, love them. But, for me, not being a designer, to learn that like stoves could be, multiple five figures. I was like, wait, what? like this is, it's like a whole new thing. And being a salesperson, I was like, the only way to do this is to own it.
Yep.
Like, why is this stove worth $45,000? Because otherwise my client is thinking, don't we go to Home Depot for a $700 GE, right? And so I love that, going to KBIS, going to markets, going to all the things, and really that the confidence comes from the knowledge and the curiosity, because there's where it's, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. So let's have a chat about this $40,000 stove and why you as a personal chef and aspire to this lifestyle will benefit from having it, as opposed to it's just why not, right?
Right.
Love it, love it, love it. And Miss O'Hara, what do you want to leave us with?
I guess I would just leave with the thought that there really is no perfect business. There are stagnant businesses, there are struggling businesses, but I think that if you have an abundance mindset, if you're open, if you're self-reflective, if you're proactive, then you'll always find yourself on a path that's going to serve you, even if it's not the route, as Erika mentioned earlier, that you expected.
I love that. That's so good. It's the truth, right? It's like you can be sitting still, you could be going backwards, but you're very rarely, I mean, you're not rarely, you're just never going to get to the point where like, that's it. It's it. Everything, again, like 40 plus years, it's like there are moments where it all feels like, hey, all the lights are on, all the bells and whistles are going. But literally the moment's like it's a second. And you're like, oh, well, that didn't happen. Oh, that fell apart. Oh, that person this. And you're just like, okay, let's get back to pulling our sleeves up again, because we had 22 seconds of thinking we had it all figured out. Right? Because it's always evolving. Right. And for those of us that are parents, I think it's like that too. If you've ever had a kid that did anything that they were super excited about it and proud of doing, a dance recital, whatever it is, and they have that moment, and then like, the next day, they get home and they got a D in a test, and it's like, bang, like, right, like I was great a second ago, and now I have a problem, right? It's like, it's that. It's looking at it from all the different ways and just trying to show up each day and doing our best, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is, doing the work. Oh my goodness, you guys are amazing. I could do this for hours. Okay, so I appreciate all of you sharing what you've shared and being honest and being vulnerable and being willing to pull that back the curtain, because it's this has been the mission of the podcast for 8 years, to do that, to highlight the things that we really need to know, that are the things that will make a difference in our business. But you've all taken it to even another level of that initiative today, and I appreciate you for doing that. Thanks so much for being with me.
Thanks, Luann. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luann.
All right, if you needed proof, I think you have it. We are all human. We are all human, and we all make mistakes, right? Thing is, you have to brush yourself off and learn to do it differently the next time. It's as simple as that. This is how you build success, right? And this all human part, if you ever see a conversation happening at an industry event, don't be afraid to go up and introduce yourself. I'm telling you, people are willing to talk and to share. You just have to introduce yourself and smile, okay? Now, I hope you learned something from today's conversation. I'll tell you a few things that stood out for me. First, let's just go through. We have a big range of design experience between these four people here, from less than 10 years to almost 25 years. And we are all, and including you out there, we are all at different stages of our businesses and our lives. I mentioned Amber Lewis, and I want you to take her quote to heart. We will link her show in the episode notes, but I'll say the quote again. She said, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle, and don't compare your middle with someone else's end. Like Erika said, do you. She said, you'll get there. It just might be a different mode of transportation than you thought. The next thing I heard in here was learn to say no. My friend Katie McDonald, who's been on the podcast and who was with us at Luann Live in 2023, said to us, no is a complete sentence. But you have to know when to say no, because almost every one of these designers on the show, and I'm sure you as well, have gotten caught up in saying yes. Sometimes it's to keep the lights on. Sometimes it's to facilitate growth. Sometimes it's just a habit. But it doesn't serve your business or your team or your life or your client if you don't know when to say no. Highly encourage you to go back and listen to Alex's interview, episode 820. He has an incredible process for learning when to say no. All right. And we're going to give you a goodie too, because it's like, you know what the goodies are? You go to luannigara.com/goodies. And anytime we put together like just the quick tips of an episode, so you don't have to take notes, you can go there and you can get them. All right. So please go and get the goodie for Alex's episode. All right. The thing is, we say yes to things too, don't we? And I was amazed by Jennifer's story, right? Is that crazy? It started by saying yes, maybe too quickly, right? She jumped into opening a second store. Maybe she didn't do enough homework. And it really, really came to bite her big time. But what I love, absolutely love about this woman is that in all the years I've known her, I've never known that. And do you know why I don't know that and did not know that? Not because she was trying to hide it. She wasn't trying to hide it from me or others, but because it's a hindsight lesson. She learned from it. She used it as a catalyst to get better and to grow more sustainably as she continued. Okay? I mean, that's what it is. It's like every one of us has these moments, but what do we do with them? We don't define ourselves by them. We don't walk into every room and go, "Oh my God, this is what I did. I'm so, oh my God, what so what? Fill in the blank," right? No, she learned from it and went on. And look at where she is today. Just wow, right? When you grow and you scale, you have to be prepared for the changes that come along with that growth. Kate said it, the bigger the ship, the harder it is to turn, right? It's not as nimble. Growth is good, but you have to make sure your navigation processes, your systems and process, your operations can keep up with it. So, and what about Erika? Erika said that she suggested to begin by developing your own personal leadership skills, investing in yourself to be a better leader. And I have to say, a great way to do this is by surrounding yourself with other great leaders, like the ones that I put together for you at my Power Talk Friday tour. This year's tour, 2024, is kicking off very soon with stops in Dallas, April 5th, in the Dirty Jersey on June 7th, in Las Vegas on August 2nd, and finally at High Point on October 25th. This is all 2024. If you want to learn more about this transformational one-day coaching event with amazing industry leaders that you can learn from and talk to, go to powertalkfriday.com. Registration for all 4 events is open now, and we are taking only 25 people at each event. So don't dilly-dally if you know you want to be there with me, okay? All right. Also, Alex encouraged us to get curious. Listen, ask questions, join in on the conversation. Knowledge comes from curiosity, he said, and so does confidence, which is what Jennifer wants you to build. When you know and understand all of the details, you are so much more valuable and so much better in a position to, put your services out there and to reap the benefits of your particular expertise. Right? And as Kate reminded us, there are no perfect businesses. Each one grows, changes, ebbs, and flows. But if we keep in mind that abundance mindset and remain intent and proactive, no matter where we are, we will be on the right path. Kate, Erika, Jennifer, and Alex, I can't thank you guys enough for joining me in this conversation. It is just what I needed today, and I am so glad you were here. Thank you, too, for listening. I hope you take this advice to heart. I hope you take some time and listen to the individual episodes of each of these rock stars and get to know them a little better. You never know when you might overhear them somewhere when you're in your travels in this design world, and then you'll have the conversation or opener you needed. All right? Thank you for joining me today. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or Luann University, go to luannnigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to windowworksnj.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.